thank you for coming today. Everyone has seen their grandma or an elderly person knitting, but what makes them so fascinated with knitting? Today, I hope to spark some creativity in your lives. What I want people to know from my speech, which is named Knitting, it's not just for your grandma. What I want people to know is that many people find comfort in knitting and find it relaxing. In my speech, I'll be demonstrating how to cast on and perform some different stitches with yarn. I will start out by explaining what you need to knit and then move into the background of knitting. Next, I will demonstrate how to perform basic knitting actions and finish by giving you options on where to find your knitting supplies. Knitting can bring comfort to many people, and I hope to give knowledge on the subject and help people find other ways to calm themselves. Now let's begin by explaining what products you need for knitting and what the process involves. First, let me begin by giving some information on the different types of yarns and needles you would use. So, what do you buy? To make different items, there are different types of yarn you need. When looking on loveKnitting.com, you can see all the different types of yarn you'd need to make different projects. To make a baby blanket, the type of yarn you'd need is soft yarn because babies have sensitive skin and they would need smaller types of yarn. But if you wanted to make a larger blanket, a more full blanket for an adult, you would use wool because it would make bigger stitches. Now, moving into the needles that you would need to buy. For a baby blanket, you would use small circular needles to make your blanket so that the stitches could be smaller with your small yarn. But with larger, fuller blankets, you would need larger circular needles to create your big stitches. There are many different types of needles and yarn, but whatever you choose, you'll have a great time making your item. Though many people knit, not many people actually know the history behind knitting. So let me give you some background ideas. An article of knitlikegranny.com describes the actual inventor of knitting is unknown. Going back to the yarn, actually, this is the first yarn for the baby blankets. It's a smaller type of yarn that you would use with your small circulator needles. This is the wool you would use, which would be thicker for your blankets. And these are the circular needles you would use. This is from loveKnitting.com. So where did knitting come from? It actually began in the Middle East, but traveled by trade all the way to Europe. In previous times, only men were allowed to take up knitting as a job. And it took 6 years for them to learn the craft so they could do it professionally. Knitting boomed in the US during the Great Depression because people had to make their own clothes because they couldn't buy the things because they did not have any money. And now knitting is popular because people are more into DIYing things. They want to make their own things to get the satisfaction of creating their own projects. Now that you have the background in knitting, let me focus on the supplies you need and teach you how to knit. So today I'll be using some straight needles. So knitting can be tricky to pick up at first, but after a while it becomes easy to pick up. So first we're going to learn how to make the slip knot. You're going to take your yarn, whatever yarn you choose, and in your left hand you're going to take the end of the string, and your right hand you're going to take the part of the string that is attached to the ball of yarn. You're going to place your right hand over your left and create a loop here, and from the loop you're going to stick your fingers in and grab the right piece of yarn and pull it through. And there you have your slip knot. Now you can move this up and down for whatever projects you need. Now, the next thing we're going to create is we're going to cast on. So you're going to take your slip knot that you just created and put it over your left needle and tighten it here. Now you're going to take your right needle for whatever needles you choose for your project, and you're going to slip it through the back of the knot you just created. Now, you're going to make sure that your right needle is pushed to the back behind your left. Wrap the string that is attached to the ball of yarn around the right and push it through so that the right is now sticking out in the front. Now you're going to take your right needle and pull to create a little loop here and stick your left needle through the loop and take your right needle out. And now you just pull tight and you've casted on one stitch. Now, depending on your project, it's going to depend on how many cast-ons you're going to do, but that just varies project to project. Finally, the last stitch we're going to do is the knit stitch. So once you have your appropriate amount of casting on, you're going to stick your right needle back through the stitch, the top stitch, just like we had done before, and wrap the yarn around the right needle, pull through to the front so that the right is in front of the left again. And instead of pulling and making a loop, you're just gonna slide the first knot off the left one and you've made your first knit stitch. Now that you know how to make all the stitches, let me show you where you can buy these things. So where can you buy the items that you need for your knitting? You can buy it at loveknitting.com or any other knitting sites. These knitting sites have hundreds of yarns and needles, and they will show exactly what yarns you need for specific projects. The yarns and needles range from prices, but the wool for the larger blankets range from about $7 to $20, and they come in an infinite amount of colors. The second place you can find it is Michaels.com or any of your local craft stores. Michaels carries lots of projects, and the wool for the large blankets can range from about $5 to $15. There are also many craft fairs you can attend to get more immersed in the knitting community and grab all the supplies you could need. In conclusion, there are so many makes and types of yarn that you could perform any project you wanted. People have been performing this action for years, so it helps to know a little bit about the history behind knitting. To learn how to cast on and knit stitch takes time and effort and just takes dedication and practice. Finally, there are many places to buy yarn, so knitting is always just one click away. Knitting is calming and can help relieve stress in so many people's lives, so try it out for yourself and see if it stress relieves you. Again, you can buy these products online, in store, or at your local craft fair. Thank you.